Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution of the United States is perhaps the best living document, the one thing that places America head and shoulders above all other countries in the world. Now, I might get some pushback on that, but as flawed as we are, I still love America and I still believe this is the best country and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Congress shall make no law. Excuse me. Hang on a second. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our First Amendment. And that First Amendment gives us the right, the freedom of speech. It gives us, and that, that was put together by our founding fathers, those folks that the people on the right love to quote and love to say, our founding fathers, they demanded we have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. Yeah, that's true. Nobody's debating you that, right? But it's the Second Amendment. Second. The First Amendment is the freedom of speech. So, right, if the right to bear arms was more important than the freedom of speech, then the right to bear arms would have been the First Amendment. But it's not, is it? Nope. Our founding fathers felt that it was more important for us to be able to tell the King of England to go kick rocks, or more important to tell a wannabe king to go fuck himself. Our founding fathers made freedom of speech the First Amendment because the right to say whatever the hell we want without fear of reprisal is more important than anything. And to this day, I love it. It is unique. You can't get away with saying whatever you want in North Korea or in Russia or in China. When I was growing up, I was puzzled, actually. I had heard many stories about the Ku Klux Klan and how they had burned crosses on people's lawns, how they assembled posses and they murdered people. They lynched them. They beat them to death. They cut their limbs off. They hung them and they burned them. And I was astounded that despite all of that, that group of people were still allowed to march. I was like, what? What is that? That's a freedom of speech. That is how powerful our First Amendment rights are. That you could be the most reprehensible person on the planet, and you still get to say whatever the hell you want to say. Charlottesville, recently, I don't have to go back to black and white photos to make my point. Charlottesville was just a few years ago when these guys, the Tiki Torch Warriors, were saying Jews will not replace us. Openly. Just openly being racist, anti-Semitic. Look at the look of hatred on their faces. And yet they weren't arrested for saying this. They weren't killed. There's only one person who was killed, and it was that woman who was struck by a vehicle. And the right to protest, she was a protester. The right to protest was her First Amendment right. He's the only person who was killed on that day. Charlie Kirk, not a fan of Charlie Kirk. And I don't care if that offends you. It is my First Amendment right to say I didn't like the guy. He said a lot of things about black people that I didn't care for. But you know what? That was his First Amendment right. Now, he wasn't a Klansman, as far as I know. I never saw his closet, so I can't confirm whether or not he had a hood with 2 holes in it. I don't know about that. But he said some things that were pretty shitty. Again, the core of who he was wrapped around the premise that everybody has the right to free speech. Here's an infamous tweet of his. He says, hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech. And all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Now, like I said before, didn't care about Charlie Kirk then. I don't care about him now. I don't think he should have been killed. In fact, the fact that he was killed was reprehensible and gross. It's disgusting. And that should be condemned by everybody, whether you liked him or you hated him. That should be condemned. But for people to cheer the First Amendment right being disabled, being turned off, for some of us, that should send a chill up everyone's spine. Whether you are right or left, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you should be concerned about that. Because, Donald Trump is in power right now, but who knows who's going to be in power in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years from now. You should worry. We should all be trying to do everything we can to ensure that every person in America has the right to say whatever the hell they want to say without reprisal. I got some shit to get into today. I hope you're ready for it, because I am. Let's go. Storytime. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I am going to forego our usual roll call. I see my faves here. I see Zelda. I see Valerie G. I see Joanne Kennedy, Cecile Kazemi, Blue Lady. I see you folks, Watcher, Soko, all of you. But I have so much stuff. Joanne Kennedy, I got so much to cover today that I want to make sure I have time to crunch it all in. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's agenda. Free speech under attack. That says it all pretty much right there. Everybody is kind of up in arms for different reasons. There are some people on the sidelines saying, damn it, that's terrible that Jimmy Kimmel was His show was suspended indefinitely. There are some people who were cheering it, people who didn't like Jimmy Kimmel because, you know, he attacks Donald Trump. And when I say attacks, he could call it attack, but basically he's just ridiculing the guy. And if you don't want to be ridiculed, don't give us so much content. I mean, every day. I wouldn't mind if a day went by that Donald Trump didn't embarrass the hell out of us. Honestly, I wouldn't mind at all. It'd be a nice breath of fresh air. I'd be like, whew, maybe he's taking medication or something. Maybe he's undergoing therapy. I wouldn't mind it. But every day he does something dumb and stupid and racist and misogynist. It's tiring. People are like, "Oh, you have TDS, you have Trump derangement syndrome. Why can't you think about anything?" But I can think of plenty of things besides Donald Trump. But it matters that he's the guy with the finger on the button. He is the most powerful guy on the planet, like it or not. He is the president. So, to kind of like try to pretend that this guy who does things like impose tariffs that nobody asked for, and then it's jacking up the cost of everything, including our electricity and our groceries and furniture and rent and mortgage, all that shit is going sky high. It matters because he's the guy who can do it. It also matters when he is surrounded by people who are too chicken shit to tell him, hey, you cannot piss on the Constitution. And trying to use his power as president to chill free speech should be denounced by every senator and every member of Congress, period. At one point, Jimmy Kimmel and Trump weren't always enemies. Trump had to put a smile on and had to make it seem like he wasn't a psychopath. Jimmy Kimmel was smiling, joking and smiling with him. By then, Donald Trump had already said and done many questionable things already. The fact that he is still, the fact that he's back in the White House, I think pretty much invalidates the notion of cancel culture. I think for some people, and I want to discuss this, the difference between cancel culture and consequence culture today. And, you see on the screen there's some pictures of people who definitely did get canceled, some who didn't. Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies. He was found liable for sexual assault, for starters. Impeached twice, bankrupted 6 businesses. I could go on and on, but he's not canceled. So I don't know about if cancel culture is actually a thing, but Jimmy Kimmel might have a difference of opinion on that. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. The like button looks like the thumbs up there, and the subscribe button is in the lower right corner of your screen. I wrote a Substack this week, and it's called Why the Kirk Assassination is Trump's Perfect Smokescreen. And it says conspiracy theories are swirling, helping authoritarian Trump win. Here's how to stop his momentum. Now, I've seen a lot of different conspiracy theories around Charlie Kirk's death. And those of you who know me know that there's nobody who enjoys a good conspiracy theory more than me. I do enjoy seeing them. It kind of makes parts of my brain, whistle. The Charlie Kirk assassination is bizarre because we basically all saw it. We saw the video, right? We saw the video over and over. Some of us saw we saw different angles of it, but it was basically the same thing. We saw some guys standing behind Zelda, my friend. Thank you so much for the kind donation. I appreciate you. Um, we saw we saw some guys standing behind him doing some arm signals and hand signals and stuff like that that looked strange because it was just mere moments before he was taken out. There's other people who told, or who didn't tell me, but who I've seen post online that said that Charlie Kirk, in the months prior um, to his assassination, had kind of changed direction on the Epstein files, and he was going to start pressing more for the Trump administration to release the Epstein files. Other people have gone even further with the conspiracy theories and said that he was actually changing his stance on Israel, and that Benjamin Netanyahu offered him something like $150 million for Charlie Kirk to adopt a more pro-Israel stance on his show. So there's conspiracy theories abounding left and right, and then now you take a look at the text messages that were shared by the Department of Justice. That's another thing. Left and right, I've seen agreement across the board. Ain't nobody buying that. It looks like they were written by Steve Buscemi's skateboarding. How are you, fellow students or fellow kids, whatever, you know. Let me go back here to this. Here's an excerpt from my article. Then America was treated to a deluge of distractions. Oh, so the other thing my article talks about is that the assassination could have been a distraction from the Epstein files, just like all the other distractions. The release of the MLK assassination files, a demand to change the name of the Washington Commanders back to its original racist name, a threat to revoke Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship, bombing Iran, and deploying the National Guard to blue cities that didn't ask for it. Trump was ruthlessly employing every trick to shake free of the Epstein files stench. This was possibly the first time in his slimy career he couldn't control the narrative. He was being wagged by the dog. Now, fast forward to last week, September 10th, when the prominent and controversial conservative podcaster Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at a public forum in an amphitheater at a Utah Valley University rally. So that's pretty much it. That's on my Substack. Have a look. There's a bunch of articles there. I hope you'll join me there. I do go on some crazy trips sometimes, but this is a serious one. Now, I'm going to say some things that some of you, if you are MAGA, are really not going to like, and I'm sorry, I don't care. I really don't care. So buckle up. I don't care that he's dead. He's not a hero. He's a scumbag. He shouldn't be celebrated. Now, you know why I don't care how you feel about me sharing those quotes? Because it was Charlie Kirk. It was Charlie Kirk talking about George Floyd. That's right out of Charlie Kirk's mouth. Excuse me. And just today, actually, the House voted. There were 58 Democrats who opposed this for there to be like a day of remembrance about Charlie Kirk. And I actually think that's a good thing. Now, those of you who are Democrats and liberals, progressives, don't change the channel. Wait for it. It's a good thing because, here, Eric Doherty says, breaking, the U.S. Senate just unanimously established October 14th, 2025 as National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. That's Charlie Kirk's birthday. Heart emoji, flag emoji. Yeah. But also, October 14th also happens to be George Floyd's birthday as well. Isn't that something? So, October 14th, you will see competing posts in social media. Some people celebrating Charlie Kirk, other people celebrating George Floyd. That should be interesting. Now, let's jump into this controversy about Jimmy Kimmel. Folks, Jimmy Kimmel is a comedian. He is a comedian. He tells jokes. Nowhere in the First Amendment does it say that comedians are exempt from the First Amendment, that they don't have freedom of speech. It doesn't say that anywhere. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. Nothing about comedians. It doesn't say anything about whether or not you have good ratings. Okay? It doesn't say anything. If you have bad ratings, then you don't have the right. Now, I watched his monologue several times. The part that people have an issue with, I don't see what the issue is. I'm going to read what it says here. It says, we had some new lows. Brad said BDD got that rewritten. We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving on Friday. The White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism, but on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this. And at that point, they showed a clip where a reporter says to Donald Trump, he's outside, you can hear the helicopter in the background. It says, President Trump, our condolences for the loss of your friend, Charlie Kirk. How are you holding up? And Donald Trump says, yeah, I'm fine. Do you see those trucks over there? They're starting on the construction of the banquet hall, and he's totally not even thinking about Charlie Kirk one iota. Yeah, I'm fine. Let's get on to what I want to talk about is that ballroom. After the clip of Trump being asked how he's holding up, Kimmel remarked, yes, he is at fourth stage of grief, construction demolition. This is not how an adult grieves someone he called a friend. And that is apparently what has gotten MAGA all up in arms. I don't get it. They are the party who told us, fuck your feelings. I know. I remember. I had them in my replies and I saw the t-shirts. Fuck your feelings. Now, if you don't mourn their hero appropriately, here's what happens. Here's a post from Variety. It says, Nexstar Media, one of the largest U.S. TV station owners, said it will pull ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live after his remarks about the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located. Said Andrew Alford, blah, 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 blah. So when Brendan Carr is the chairman of the FCC, the Federal Communications, damn it, what's the other C for? The FCC, you know what it is. People who deal with TV and broadcasts. So Kevin McHale, I swear I could have sworn that was a basketball player for the Celtics. He says this was all in Project 2025, by the way, and Brendan Carr, FCC chairman, posts a GIF of Jack Nicholson saying, Yes, like there's that's that devilish Jack Nicholson thing. And here, Brian Stelter posts that he asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any new comment now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show. And he sent me this GIF, and it's of Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute from The Office, raising the roof, celebrating, basically. So Brendan Carr, a supposed professional who's supposed to represent the 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 needs of all Americans, not just Republicans, is carrying on like a sophomore in high school, like a child, basically, reveling in the fact that we got him. Okay. Call to Activism posts Trump trashes Jimmy Kimmel in the UK. And I actually do have a clip for that to share with you guys. Let's go here.
Speech is under attack. Vice President Vance said that free speech is under attack in the UK. Do you agree with him? And Prime Minister, we saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, he was not fired for ratings. He was not fired for lack of talent. You hate him, love him or hate him, you cannot accuse him of not being talented or not being funny, unless you really take it personally when he razzes your guy. Your guy meaning Donald Trump. And honestly, I don't even get it. If you can look at some of the things that Trump says and does, and you aren't absolutely, humiliated by it, so something is wrong. Something is wrong with you. So no, that is not why Jimmy Kimmel was fired. In fact, mere moments before Jimmy Kimmel was suspended, ABC was told that they might not get their merger approved and they might lose their license. So, that's basically the equivalent of a mob guy coming into your shop and saying, "Hey, it's a nice store here. Be ashamed if something should happen to it." Now, he's not explicitly telling you what he's going to do if you don't do what he says, if you don't pay him protection money. But the implication there is pretty strong. And that's what Donald Trump does. He gets people to do things without explicitly saying what he wants. And that is his mob training. Let's go back here. And then he says here, he tells reporters on the plane, you have a network and you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump. They're not allowed to do that. Well, guess what? Newsflash, they are allowed to do that. See, the First Amendment guarantees they're allowed to do that. We're in the United States of America. This is not yet North Korea. It's not yet Russia. It's America. We know you love those dictators. It's weird. It's very strange to me that Donald Trump tiptoes around dictators and pedophiles. He tiptoes around them. You've never heard him say one harsh thing about Vladimir Putin. He's my friend. He's my friend. What is the worst thing he said about Putin? As Putin continues to bomb Ukraine, killing thousands, tens of thousands of people, what is it the worst thing he said? He's made me angry. Vladimir, no. Vladimir, stop. What has he said about Kim Jong-un? He fell in love. Fell in love with Kim Jong-un. What has he said about Ghislaine Maxwell? You know, the person who personally steered young girls to Jeffrey Epstein for the purpose of sexually assaulting them, raping them, basically. I wish her well. And he defended that too. Well, you know, her boyfriend was killed. You know, of course I wish her well. He didn't say anything about, she's already been convicted. He's had a chance. She's been convicted of child sex trafficking. You mean to tell me you can't think of one negative thing to say about a child sex trafficker? I hope she does all her time. I hope she rots in prison, would be what I said if they'd asked me. Easily. I didn't have to write that up. It's off the top of my head. Jeffrey Epstein, I'm still waiting for him to say something negative about that guy. All we have, the only things we have are the birthday thing that he wrote about what a wonderful thing a pal is, and the wonderful secrets we share, and the picture he drew of a prepubescent child's outline on that birthday card that he swears is not his signature, but it's his signature. So anyway, I don't even know how I ended up on that rant. They're not allowed to do that. Oh yeah. I was talking about how he talks about he'll have negative things to say about governors. He'll call Governor Gavin Newsom new scum, and he'll say, call Nancy Pelosi crazy Nancy and crooked Hillary, and about all these other, governors and senators, and he can't say a goddamn thing about a dictator or a pedophile. And I'm allowed to call him out for that because, again, we're still living in the United States of America. Now, if ratings were what dictates whether or not you keep your job here, Donald Trump would be fired today. He would be fired. These are his approval ratings from July. That's a few months ago. Wait, sorry. That says August 4th. Excuse me. His disapproval was at 60%. His approval was at only 38%. That's in August. It's only gone down since. Tracking the presidency, this is September 18th. Let's see, 241 days into Donald Trump's term. The president's net approval rating is 17%, down 2.6 points since last week. 39% approve, 56% disapprove, 4% not sure. And this post by Spencer Hakimian says this latest batch of Trump approval rating polls are out. 9 months in, he is the most unpopular president in modern American history. The second most unpopular president was also Donald Trump, his first term. Isn't that something? Has the Trump administration make the economy better or worse? A whopping 52% say worse. I don't know if that 30% number is right. Then those people are rich. Simply rich, because the rest of us are struggling just to scratch by. If you have been to the grocery store lately, you are catching your breath at the cash register. You're like, oh shit, it's scary going shopping now. And by the way, when Trump was told about these ratings, he said Fox News polling is always the worst. Anything that polling that is negative about him, he hates. Any question he gets that is not an easy layup, President Trump, why are you so great? Anything that's not like that, he hates. He'll say, where are you from? Who are you with? Yeah, of course. ABC News. ABC is fake news. NBC is fake news. That's why you're garbage. You're never gonna go anywhere. You can't take anything that's above a softball pitch. So here's a fun fact. This is kind of hilarious. Back in the day when Trump was out there, getting wasted in clubs and grabbing women by the pee, at will, he used to call the tabloids either as John Barron. I forget the other names that he used. If you guys can remember what were his other pseudonyms, please share that with me. I know one was John Barron, and he used to share his sexual exploits and talk about how what a prolific lover he was and how the women just adore him. It's funny when I think about it to this day, because I would never do that. I can't, like, my brain doesn't work like that. To be my own hype man, and to be a hype man talking about my sexual, like, who needs that information? What was that, page 6, the gossip pages? They want to know that he's a great lover, And according to Stormy Daniels, he ain't all that. He's a mushroom. Anyway. So naturally, a guy who is that concernicus about his image, it infuriates him when he can't get positive coverage. And that's why he lashes out at people like he lashed out at Yamiche Alcindor the other day. It was disgusting. Here, this person, Firehawk, tweeted, "Wouldn't surprise me if Pedo Trump ordered the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Distraction from his pedophilia, failing economy, inflation, Russia and Israel ineptitude, trade war failure, failing health, massive healthcare cost increases, and the lowest approval rating in history." Did you guys hear that? Like in context of all of that, the Jeffrey Epstein thing actually seems kind of small to me, right? It seems very small. It's not small. It's big. It's a big deal. But in terms of its impact on us as Americans, right? Yeah, we want to see justice for the victims. We want to see everybody who was a Jeffrey Epstein client held accountable, exposed and held accountable. But at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't really affect us. What does affect us is all the other stuff I just read, let me read that again. His failing economy, inflation, Russia and Israel ineptitude, trade war failure. There are farmers right now in Arkansas, and I can't think of the other places, Iowa, farmers who are having a shit fit right now because their farms are on the verge of failing because of his tariffs, his trade war. Failing health, massive healthcare costs, the health thing. RFK Jr., are you fucking kidding me, bro? I mean, look, there are certain things that, as an American, you shouldn't care whether or not the person holding that position is a Democrat or a Republican, right? For one, the FBI director, I don't give a shit. Robert Gates was a holdover from George W. Bush. President Obama kept him. He was a Republican. Obama was like, yeah, okay, he's good at his job. Let's keep him so he can help keep us safe. I didn't care about that. Same thing Joe Biden did. Joe Biden kept Christopher Wray, who Trump picked. President Biden kept Trump's pick for FBI in place. I didn't care. I wasn't like, hey, well, how dare he? I was more upset about the Merrick Garland pick than I was about Chris Wray. Okay. I was mad about that. I was mad about that. I thought Sally Yates would have been much better as the Attorney General. And I guess I was proven right, as many of you were as well. Merrick Garland was a huge disappointment. I'm not going to get into that right now. But things that affect us directly, health and safety, those positions, he picked the worst people. He picked Kash Patel, who was a clown, who's a childish, juvenile clown who embarrassed himself in front of the world this week, but especially in Congress this week. Same thing with RFK Jr. Just, answer the goddamn questions, put the dramatics to the side. But they can't, because they're performing for an audience of one, which is Donald Trump. And Donald Trump likes that juvenile shit. Me personally, I just want us to be safe and to be healthy. I don't want to see another COVID. I don't want to see this outbreak of measles blow up into something huge. I don't want to see that. And if it means, listen to what I'm saying, right? If his picks for those cabinet positions are effective and they not only keep us safe, but they also keep us healthy, I'll applaud. I don't want us to suffer a major terrorist attack. I don't want us to suffer a pandemic, right? So I am rooting for people in those positions to do their fucking jobs well. I have zero confidence in either of those guys, in most of his cabinet. I'm scared. Anyway, where was I? So here we are back with Donald Trump and Epstein and the overall distraction that won't go away. It won't go away. It's the one thing he can't change. Donald Trump used to be able to create a scandal per week to get away from the last scandal that the first term was scandal after scandal after scandal. It was Sharpiegate. It was the Hurricane Maria. It was the throwing of the paper towel. Everything, every different week was a different scandal. Now he can't get away from this because he campaigned on the Epstein files. And let me just say this for the people in the back who keep asking me, oh, how come Democrats, but Joe Biden was in office 4 years? How come he didn't release the files? Well, for 3.5 of those years, those files were under, damn it. Don't make me grok this. They were under a court order, right? They were sealed, for lack of whatever the official word is. And Joe Biden, by the way, was so disconnected from the Department of Justice. He was so disconnected from the Department of Justice, he allowed them to prosecute his own son. So, he was busy doing other shit. He was busy with the infrastructure and the manufacturing jobs and all the other stuff that he did. Where am I here? So let's talk about cancel culture, right? Republicans against Trump tweeted here. Turns out MAGA doesn't hate cancel culture. They just want to own it. Right? So what's cancel culture? Cancel culture, according to Dave Portnoy, you guys know him. He's from the Barstool Sports guy. He says, with Kimmel getting canned, I'm seeing lots of people talking about the hypocrisy of cancel culture. To him, cancel culture is when people go out of their way to dig up old tweets, videos, etc., looking for dirt on somebody they don't like in an effort to get them fired. Like if Kimmel got canceled for shit he did on The Man Show, that would be cancel culture. But when a person says something that a ton of people find offensive, rude, dumb in real time, and then that person is punished for it, that's not cancel culture. That is consequences for your actions. So, I looked it up I looked up Grok's description of cancel culture. And Grok says the distinction between cancel culture and consequence culture has been a topic of debate. Definition of cancel culture is it refers to the practice of withdrawing support for public figures or companies after they have done or said something considered objectionable or offensive. It often involves social media campaigns calling for boycotts, firings, or other forms of ostracization. Often perceived as a sudden collective backlash against an individual or entity, can be seen as a form of social accountability where the public holds figures accountable for their actions or statements. Critics argue it can lead to disproportionate punishment, stifle free speech, and create a chilling effect on public disclosure. Now, I have seen instances of people digging through the past, looking for tweets or statements or videos or pictures where people were doing stuff that was considered offensive. Like, for instance, Ted, what's the guy who is married to Whoopi Goldberg? Ted Danson, Ted Danson did a blackface thing, and he did that under the, I guess, approval of what's her name of Whoopi Goldberg. It was supposed to be a joke. Back then people weren't that sensitive about blackface. I remember movies growing up that I watched, one with C. Thomas Howell. I think it was called Soul Man, and he was in blackface there. It was the 80s. It was a different time. I grew up basically during the Wild West of culture, where people were still using the N-word. In fact, they weren't even calling it the N-word. They were just saying it, or the R-word. They definitely weren't calling it the R-word. They were just saying what it was. But nowadays, if you say those things, yeah, you can get canceled. And what does that mean? That means that you get embarrassed, I guess. People will confront you on social media and say, how dare you? This is insensitive. And at some point, it does feel like mob justice, right? Now, consequence culture. Let's go back to, hang on a second. Oh, here's a tweet from Matt Wallace, who I believe he's on the right. He says, cancel culture. This was 2 years ago. But last week, he says, my team and I have now gotten at least 25 people fired from their jobs for celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Should we keep going? So is that cancel culture? Is that consequence culture? Really, what is the difference between those things? Let's look at what Grok says about consequence culture. Grok says consequence culture is framed as a response to actions or statements in real time. So as opposed to looking back, it says in real time, where individuals face repercussions directly related to their recent behavior. It's often presented as a more justified form of accountability, and characteristics are emphasized as immediate consequences for actions rather than dredging up past offenses, often invoked by those who feel cancel culture is unfairly applied, suggesting that consequences should be proportional and context specific, and also can be seen as a rebranding of cancel culture. So basically, it's the same shit. You're just using a different word to make it sound like it's not as bad. By those who wish to distance themselves from its negative associations while still advocating for accountability. So look, I believe that if you do negative, hurtful things, yeah, you should be held accountable. But yeah, should there be a proportionate response? Should there be overkill? Should someone's entire life be destroyed because they misused a pronoun? They misgendered somebody? I don't think so. Especially if they have the opportunity to learn from it. Yeah, you shouldn't just have to destroy somebody for maybe what might have been an honest mistake. If somebody comes out and uh, abuses somebody in public, you know, and they should know better, do they deserve to lose their job? I don't know. That's not for me to say. Um, Honestly, I don't think so, but I think that they should feel some shame about it. You know, they should learn. Like, why are you calling somebody the N word because they cut you off in traffic? Is that's where you go? All right. That's a hurtful word. It is associated with a lot of pain and a lot of history, a lot of death. So yeah, people are losing their jobs for criticizing slain free speech advocate Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I don't advocate people cheering assassinations. That's grimy. That's ghoulish and grimy. To cheer someone who has been killed for using their free speech. Again, I grew up watching Ku Klux Klan, the worst people on earth, marching and saying that I'm not equal to them, that I don't have the right to live in the same society as them. I grew up watching them march out in public and openly express their opinions without being shot at. I've also seen assassinations before. I don't think political violence is ever the answer. Never. And cheering it is wrong. It's just fucked up. In a bizarre moment, Brian Kilmeade, who recently said we should quote unquote just kill mentally disturbed homeless versus via lethal injection, says that Jimmy Kimmel's innocuous comments about Charlie Kirk went way too far. Irony is dead. Now let's talk about consequence culture. That's pretty. That's pretty horrible. That's pretty horrible. Speaking as someone who spent some time during my drug addicted years, I spent some time homeless myself. Yeah, I did it to myself. I'm not blaming anyone for me being homeless, but I'm just saying, like, people who are homeless or unhoused, they're people. At the end of the day, they're people and they're going through some shit. Some of us are able to figure it out. I was fortunate. I figured it out. You know, was I kind of insane? Yeah, I was. I was crazy. I'm glad I had that as a memory too, because that is part of what helps keep me sober. And when I say sober, I mean I don't even touch a beer. I don't drink beer. I don't smoke weed. Nothing. 22 years, clean and sober, proud of it. Looking forward to 23, 24, 30, 40, however many God lets me, accumulate. Excuse me. Brian Kilmeade still has his job, by the way. Still has his job, despite the fact that he advocated for the killing of homeless. And 2 or 3 days later, he apologized, right? I thought it was a weak ass apology, but he did apologize 2 or 3 days later. Still has his job. Congressman Randy Fine says just a couple of months ago that the Thump Thump Act will allow Americans to run over these Muslim terrorists. They don't try this in Florida because of the bill I helped pass in the legislature to allow them to be run over. So this guy wants to be able to run people over with his vehicle because they're Muslim and they share a different ideology than him. Still has his job. I'm sure he hasn't been censured. I would have heard about it. And here's Donald Trump's opinion on Truth Social. He says, the radical left, this is 2 years ago, the radical left wants to criminalize free speech. Isn't that something? Now, I have said things about Donald Trump. I remember in the wake of January 6th, I, along with many of you, were outraged that Donald Trump had used his influence, he had used his position, he had used his platform to incite hundreds, thousands of people to the point where they were outraged. They felt an election had been stolen from them. And he got them all riled up and then pointed them at the U.S. Capitol, where they proceeded to beat cops with flagpoles, with fire extinguishers, with mace, with their hands. There was a guy trying to gouge people's eyes out. Yeah, so I thought, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for him not to have access. If he can't use his platform responsibly, why should he have that platform? So he can order his millions of angry minions to go attack some other facility, some other people? So, but there's a big difference between me, Joe Public, citizen, United States citizen, no power whatsoever, and the government censoring comedy, saying what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. There's a big difference. And you got to draw the line. Democrats and Republicans have to come together on this. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to agree on any other point. But it's our First Amendment, not the 10th, not the 2nd, not the 5th, the first. It's the most important one. If we can't agree on that, then we don't deserve a democracy. We have to. We have to get there. We got to put our differences to the side. I love these, right? You seem to be fine when Dems were canceling everyone. No. I guess you just tuned in, but no. And so what if that's how Republicans are going to go forward? Well, you guys did that before, so now we're going to do this now. And then when it comes back to us, what are we going to now get back at you for doing the shit? Come on. Enough is enough. Oh, you're just saying that now because you're on the receiving end. Yeah, okay. And then you'll be saying it when you're on the receiving end because nobody learned a fucking lesson. Here's some more. The guy who was complaining about criminalizing free speech has a big issue with Saturday Night Live making fun of him. Watch Saturday Night Live hit job on me. Time to retire the boring and unfunny show. Alec Baldwin portrayal stinks. Media rigging election. Here's another one. NBC News is bad, but Saturday Night Live is the worst of NBC. Not funny. Cast is terrible. Always a complete hit job. Really bad television. Instead of worrying so much about what they're saying about you on social media, why don't you do your job? Do your job. Do a good job. Huh? For starters, right? Cancel all those tariffs. Cancel those. If you want to do a cancel culture, cancel the tariffs. You're hurting Americans. We were fine, actually. You could have done like the bare minimum and just let Joe Biden's economy continue to percolate a bit. But instead, you decided to go in the complete opposite direction, make unemployment numbers go up, make job availability go down, make prices go up. Do you think anybody really believes Donald Trump when he says next year the economy is going to be roaring? This guy who says he'll have a health care proposal in 2 weeks. He said that years ago when he said he'll give Vladimir Putin 2 weeks. He said 2 weeks to Vladimir Putin 3 times, and then he said 50 days, and then 50 days came and went, and nothing happened. After 50 days, there's going to be severe consequences. There was nothing. No tariffs on him. So why should we believe him when he says anything? Do your job, for starters. And secondly, respect the Constitution. You, of all people, you swore an oath. You, Donald Trump, swore an oath to defend the Constitution. You are not doing that if you are using your authority to break our First Amendment. And I'm seeing a whole lot of cowardice on the right side of the aisle in Congress. Y'all need to fix that, because 2026 is coming and people are mad, not even so much about the Epstein files. They're mad about the state of the economy. They're mad about losing their Medicaid. They're mad about hospitals closing. They're mad about Republicans starting to talk about raising the retirement age, which I just saw today. Hey, I'm 57 years old. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. You talk about raising the retirement age, I'm going to just be chasing after it until it's out of reach? What the fuck is that? You wouldn't have to do that if you made billionaires pay their rightful share. Oh, it's going to kill job. Nonsense. Nonsense. Billionaires are richer than they've ever been before. They keep telling that same lie over and over since the 80s. Probably longer, but especially since the 80s. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that today. I don't have any movie picks or TV picks, although I will say I am enjoying Alien Earth tremendously. I will say Alien Earth is one of the best shows, if not the best show on TV right now. I'm in the middle of watching a show called Upload, which is fascinating depiction of people using technology to extend their life into the afterlife, basically. So heaven is now like available with a purchase, digital. You can digitally live forever in this show Upload. It's a fun show. Any questions? Shelby says, trickle down is a bunch of nonsense. Oh, shit. Yes, agree with that. And I was saying, oh, shit, about Stella Baxter saying Superman is on HBO Max. Ka-ching. Yes, I will be watching that this weekend again. Adolescence was a wonderful, wonderful show. I mean, it's a heavy subject matter. It's about a kid accused of murder. It takes place in London. Extremely well acted, and it was like a single shot show. So it basically, you are following the characters, the camera is following the characters, and you never see like the camera switch to a different scene. It's always like you are following them. There's one scene where you're following them and they're driving, and sometimes they're talking, sometimes they're not. But usually when somebody is going somewhere in a car, they'll cut the scene and they're magically there. They take you through every little bit. Let's see. Reasonable Doubt is back on Hulu. Lucy L says. Oh, yeah. Watcher Soko asks, has anyone seen The Boys on Amazon? The Boys is interesting if you like superhero stuff. Mixed with a bit of reality. There's a character, she's a superhero who's very much like Marjorie Taylor Greene. there's definitely a lot of overlap with reality there. There's another show called Gen V, which is a what do they call it? Crossover show, and it's about basically superheroes in college. And again, the connection with real world politics and MAGA and the resistance. It's all in there. It's my favorite painting. That's that's a very good question. I couldn't even tell you right now. Strangely enough, I would probably say one of Salvador Dali's paintings. I honestly don't have a favorite painting. That's an interesting question. I'll have to think about that one. The Pit. They won some awards. I will definitely be checking that out. Okay. All right, you guys. So thank you again for joining me for another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Guys, I want to say this, right? I know I made a big deal out of the stuff that's going on with the First Amendment, and I'm right to. We let a lot of stuff go. We can't let that go, because if we let the freedom of speech, the ability to openly share our opinions on social media or on anywhere, we're lost. We're lost. And it's very easy to lose that right to, hey, you guys who didn't like Obama and didn't like Joe Biden, you shared all those funny memes and FJB and all that stuff. What if one day somebody showed up at your house, FBI, and arrested you for sharing those memes? You're crazy. Am I? Because what's crazy right now, in a month, in a year, in 2 years, in 5, 10 years, is not going to be so crazy if we allow this slippery slope to continue. So, folks, don't despair, right? The world is not going to end. Tomorrow the sun is going to come up and everything is going to be everything. But definitely keep your head on a swivel. Stay engaged, stay in touch with each other. And always remember that there is hope. As long as you're alive, as long as you're breathing, as long as you can open your eyes, there's always hope to change things, right? Don't let despair take over. That is the overall, when you resist, you are resisting despair, right? Fascists and dictators, they need you to feel hopeless. They need you to feel scared. They need you to give up. Don't give up. Hang in there. We're going to get through this together. So I look forward to seeing you all here, same time, same place. I love you all. Peace.